Welcome to Isolate. So this is the second phase of pelvic floor muscle training. I want you to keep this in mind because I know that we're going to be talking about a lot of complicated things here, and I want you to just be empowered that although it sounds very complicated, the basic concept is simple, that with the pelvic floor muscles, we want to teach the pelvic floor muscles to do the right thing at the right time. There are many different ways that we can do that. And so we're going to be talking about some of those in the improvement section, which is the third phase of pelvic floor muscle training. But basically, don't be overwhelmed. I'm happy that you're here. And even making one small change to your pelvic floor and your pelvic health can make a powerful difference. So let's keep going and let's talk about isolating. So why do we need to isolate the pelvic floor muscles? There's many people out there that say, oh, you know, the pelvic floor muscles are part of the core. They're supposed to just automatically engage. And if you just do general exercise, then that's going to engage the pelvic floor and retrain the pelvic floor. Well, if that were the case, then walking itself would automatically improve the pelvic floor, or doing leg exercises would automatically improve the pelvic floor. But we're seeing that we need to isolate those muscles to be able to give them the attention and the time that they need to rehab, and then we integrate them into our regular everyday activities. So Dr. Carrie Bow, she is an amazing physiotherapist over from Europe. She's done hundreds of research papers, and here is a wonderful quote from her. Most importantly, to train and build up a muscle or muscle group strength and volume is mandatory to work specifically with the targeted muscle. So remember when we were talking about, like, if you're working with a muscle, let's say that you had a shoulder injury and we need to work on the bicep. Well, we're going to target this bicep individually, work the bicep, work on strengthening, work on relaxation, work on coordination, and then we add it in to other global exercises and movements. And so that's the same concept with the pelvic floor. Let's isolate it. You know how to identify it, now isolating it. Something really important with the pelvic floor is to correctly contract and completely let go. So remember how we said that a lot of people will think that they're exercising or activating the pelvic floor muscles when they actually may be straining, or they might be working other muscle groups. So it's a pretty simple concept here. With pelvic floor muscle contraction, you have two key elements that we're looking at. We want to squeeze and we want to lift. So if you think about the anus, looking at that anus, we want that anus to squeeze and we want it to lift. When you look at some of these other muscle groups that we're talking about, so if you put your finger in the vaginal canal, we want it to squeeze and lift, pull up and in. And so the same concept applies with the various pelvic floor muscles. Now, they do have different jobs and they do different functions, but that's the basic overall two key criteria that you're looking at with a contraction is squeezing and lifting. So another example would be to use your lips. Okay, so you want to squeeze. So if you're just doing this, is that a very good squeeze? It may not be a very good squeeze, right? But you are working the muscles, okay? So remember, everyone starts somewhere. So the expectation that when you squeeze, everyone's going to be like this, that's an unrealistic expectation. So not everyone is going to be like that at the beginning. But squeezing and then lifting. So I'm not sure how I can do that so well with my lips, but I'll try. So squeeze. And then lift. You're pulling up and in. So go grab that mirror and look at your anus, and that's one of the best ways to see. Squeeze and lift, or if you have a vagina, put a finger in there and see if you can squeeze and lift. Remember what we talked about with if you have more vaginal laxity, okay? Especially if you've had babies vaginally, if you put that finger in, It's easier to rest that finger on the back part of the vaginal canal. So here's the anus, that's the perineal body. Rest that finger on the back part of the vaginal canal, and then when you squeeze, it kind of lifts, it lifts up, because sometimes it may be difficult to get that strong squeeze. Okay. All right. And then the second piece to isolating the pelvic floor muscles is relaxation. So we need to completely let go. Let's think about this bicep. If we're doing a great job squeezing, but we're only letting go halfway, we're only letting go 3/4 of the way, we're going to lose range of motion, right? We're going to lose that ability to fully extend the arm. It's going to be painful. It's going to be tight. It's going to be sore. And eventually it's going to be contracted and you're not going to be able to do it. So the same thing can happen with the pelvic floor muscles where they get shortened. Your muscle fibers are kind of like this. So when you contract, they glide together like that. And that makes that firm, good, strong contraction. You relax and they come to baseline and then they can actually stretch, okay? And so that's what we want. We want a good, firm, strong contraction, and we want full relaxation. Okay, so before we finish this section with isolation, remember, correctly contract. We want to squeeze, close, and lift, and completely let go. Relax, open, and or lower. Okay, so it's those two key phases. And again, pelvic floor muscle training, we can make it sound very, very complicated, but the basic concept, if you think about the bicep or applying it to any other concept, voluntary muscle in the body, we want to squeeze and relax. Squeeze and relax. Your hand has multiple muscles, right? And it does multiple things, but they work together to squeeze and relax. Squeeze and relax. So start applying that concept to the pelvic floor muscles, and both phases are equally important. We need both to be healthy and to live the lives that we want to live and do the things that we want to do without pain, pressure, or leaks. Good job. Let's go to 8C.